Now that we have it set up so that we have a basic functioning for the quiz where we can answer all the questions and we can reach some sort of loading states and we have the total remaining correct and correct, what I want to do is set it up so that we have authenticated users, and those authenticated users, we can retain their scores. We'll eventually do it so that we can retain the time as well. But for now, I just want to set it up so that we have a place to store the scores and they can see it on the back end. If we go ahead and take a look at the register, Laravel has changed how they do the default authentication. Well, they haven't really changed how they do it, but Laravel has always had authentication baked within the Laravel ecosystem without any extra packages or anything. So it's very, very basic authentication, but it's still really powerful authentication. And because we only need this really to register and log in, it's not a big deal that we just use this. We're not going to need all of the other cool features like two-factor authentication. We've done that before. If you want to install a different package to handle authentication, you are more than welcome to do that. For my purposes, I'm just going to use the default authentication. We can go ahead and just create another user or a new user. And as you can see, this is the new backend for the Laravel 12 installs. Everything is essentially the same, where you have the user email, you have a settings link, and this will take care of any profile that you have. As I said, it's very basic. There are a lot of things that you can still do in here. So what I want to do is create a link, an additional link to a new page that'll be for our stats. And then we'll be able to see them in a table in here. So let's head over to the back end and start setting it up so that we can have that page and start plugging some things into it. All right, so what are the things that we're going to need for this? Well, I'm going to open up another terminal and we'll do PHP artisan, make controller, or make model. I'm going to call this a stat model. And this stat model is going to have a migration. It's going to have a factory. It's going to have a controller. And I want to make it resourceful. That should be good for right now. So we have everything that we're going to need. That one command is going to run everything for us. Now, if we come back here and we head over to the database, we can start there with the migration. We're going to need a score. This will just be an unsigned integer. Doesn't have to be a big integer because the scores are going to range anywhere from 0 to 100. Unsigned integer, and then this one I'll just call score. And then we're also going to need the start time and end time, but as I said, we're not going to be working on that today. So for now, I'm just going to put date time. I'll call this one start time. And because we're not going to have anything to put in it really from the front end, I am going to just make it nullable. And here I'll also put the end time. We'll add them into the factory, but as far as the front end, we're not going to have it. The other thing I do want to put in here too is the relationship to the user. So this will be foreign ID. And then we'll just call it user ID. We'll make it constrained. And then on delete, cascade on delete. So I'll go ahead, save that. And then let's add these fields to the model. We'll come back to the other database aspect, but for now I just want to come back to the model. And in here, I'm going to paste that in just so I have a reference. And we'll say protected, fillable, equals. I'll make it an array. And here we have the score, the start time, and the end time. Since we're in here, why don't we also do the relationship to the user? For us, the user will have many stats. Public function, stats, or human. I don't know, I'm sick. And this will be belongs to. Make sure to import that. And here we'll just return. This belongs to the user class. Add missing return tags, and that should be good. Now that we have this one in here, we can do the inverse in the user model and knock that out immediately. Function. This will be plural stats. Get rid of this. The return type will be has many. So return this as many stat class. Add missing return tags. And it has been imported up top. So we'll go ahead and save that. Now we can go ahead and actually just close these out. And then we'll go into the factory and we'll create a little factory for ourselves so that we can see something in the database. Just so that we can see it on the front end. So very simply, the first one that we have is the score. And then we can say that that equals, we can do rand, which is just PHP for random numbers between certain particular numbers. So between 0 and 100. We can have the start time be, we'll just say it's now. Laravel leverages Carbon to give us really easy datetime functions. And so now it's just part of Carbon. And I'm going to copy and paste this one. This will be end time. And then this will be now add minutes. And again, this is just Carbon's helpful little function that will allow us to add some minutes. So we'll say random between, we'll say 2 and 60. So that will make it a good enough time to be separate from the other one. Let me straighten this out. And I forgot a closing parentheses here. Save that. And now we can close that, and go to our database seeder. And I'm going to comment out this user factory because we're not going to need it, but I will open this one up. And so we'll create 10 users, and then we'll say that each of those 10 users has stats because we've already created that relationship. And we'll just say that each of those 10 users has 10 stats, and then we should be able to go ahead and create. So I'm going to open up the terminal, and we need to do PHP artisan migrate. We also need to see that. Let's make sure we can do that without a problem, and it looks like we have. Now, if we go ahead and take a look into the database, we have a stats column, and let's take a look at the table. And as you can see, we have now 10 users. Each of them have a score, a start time, and end time created at an update. And this is something that will be helpful for each of these users. Let's go ahead and get the page up so that we can log in as one of these users and see our stats. Now, of course, as with anything, there are a million ways to do stuff in Laravel. So I'm going to open up the terminal, go back here, and we can close these up. I am going to go ahead and create a new web route. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this one because it has the middleware and stuff that we need. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one, I want this one to be a group, so maybe that wasn't a good idea. We'll do route, middleware, and then I'll paste this in. It'll be a group function because we're going to have a couple of different ones to put in here. And now it'll be route, get, I'll call it quiz stats. We're going to use that new stat controller that we just created. Class, and this is going to be the index. So again, this is where we're going to be displaying them. So the name for this one, I'll just call it stats.index. Let's make sure that that was imported up top, and it was. I can get rid of this. Okay, so let's head into this. I keep forgetting that I have to update some things. But anyway, index. This one is going to return, we'll say inertia, render, and our component will just be stats. I want to pass in the array of stats, but I don't want to just pass in any stats. I want to pass in just the stats for that particular user. We'll say stats equals auth user stats. Save that. And now we should be able to create this page and start seeing our stats. Let's head down to the resources, JS pages. And this one is just going to be stats.view. For now, I'll just do setup. We'll define props. And we have stats And for us, stats is going to be of type array. And we don't need this for right now. And I suppose we're going to need a link to get to that, but for now, we'll just check it out in the browser. First, I want to go ahead and grab a user. And I just need their email. We are logged in, but we don't have a link to it yet, so I'll just do quiz stats. We are logged in as user 1, and as you can see, we have our information in here. Why don't we start by creating a link for this? Now, in typical Laravel fashion, yes, they've made some things easier, but they've also made things harder, right? On our dashboard here, if we take a look here, there are 2 places where we can have links to this. So the first will be here in the sidebar. And then up here, there's like these breadcrumb type things that we can sort of use too. So let's start looking for the sidebar. Now the sidebar is in the components. So if we go up to components and go to app sidebar, you can see this is where that dashboard is. And here are the footer nav items for that sidebar and the GitHub repo and the documentation. And then there's the layout for it. So for us, we can create a new nav item right in here. And I'm going to call this one, I'll call it quiz stats. And conveniently, we already have a route for that, which is quiz stats. Now this icon here is the layout grid. This layout grid is coming from the loose side view next package. Let's see if I can get to it. Might be it. But there's a lot of them. If we go up to this thing here, there are a bunch of different icons that come from this that we can leverage in that app sidebar. If you go to the loose side documentation, you're going to be able to find more, but for now, instead of the layout grid, I want to use the chart column. Now, because Laravel has imported these, I can maybe able to get update import, maybe. That'll do it. So chart column has been brought in up top. Theoretically, now that we've imported that component from the package into this component that's in our project, we should be able to see this. And that's the only thing I should have here. So let's take a look at the browser and see. There we go. Now we should be able to click it and it takes us back to our quiz stats page. Let's also put the layout for this. Let's also put it in our quiz stats page. Because I do not wish to reinvent the wheel today, I am going to copy the layout. Well, actually, what page is that in? For now, I'm going to just copy this. We can always adjust the information later. Placeholder pattern is that little weird pattern thing that's in the card in the center of the... We come back here and we go to dashboard. It's these little cards in here. That's that weird pattern inside. That's also another component. Just so you know, that's where that pattern is coming from. So up here, we can keep this information for now. There is a breadcrumb as well, which we can change. So I'll do quiz stats. And then again, quiz stats. Title, quiz stats. Breadcrumbs. Okay. Let's bring in our prop because I don't want to make things too confusing. We'll do it down here. I'll even make it really official. We'll say type is array and required is true. Now all this is saying is that this prop type should be in here. We'll do that. And then for now, I'll just put it here. I'm going to refresh that just in case. And then as you can see, we have the 3 up here and then we have the stats in here. So what I want to do is instead of actually this, I want to put this in some kind of a table. Now, there are a couple of ways that we can handle this. We could use something from Shad UI, but that would involve having to install something. And I don't want to have to do that just to have some styling for a simple table component. Typically, when I'm mocking things up, this just seems excessive to me when I can just grab it from Flowbyte. So let's head over to Flowbyte. If you go to flowbyte.com and you do a search for tables, it'll bring you to this page right here where there are plenty of tables in here. So this is the default table. There's one here that it's every other one has a just slightly different color on it. And then there's one also where you can hover like this. And I think this is the one that I'm going to use. This is perfectly useful for our needs and we can just adjust it accordingly. Ooh, that's bright. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this. And here, instead of this, I'm going to leave that first div here with the flex on it. Straighten that up a bit. And let's see what we have now. And I think that looks pretty good. We have a little bit of a hover thing on here and we didn't really have to install anything or do anything funky with it. There you go. Now let's go ahead and start filling this in. Now the first thing that I want to put in here is the ID. And we'll just do hashtag ID. The next will be the score. And then we'll have the average score. And then here we'll also do the highest score. This we do not need. And let's come down here and let's see, I can get rid of all this. We're not going to need it. Well, actually, we do need the first one. So the T row, we can close off these, get rid of them. We're not going to need them. And then we can loop over what we have on this first T row. So I'll do V4. We'll say item, index, in stats, and then the key will just be index. So here we can say item ID. This will be score. I'll put something like, I don't know, 45.5 and then 90. Let's also do the created at so that we can have what date we played these on. Save that and see what we have. We have the ID number associated with whatever the quiz was. And these are the dates we play. We're going to play around with these dates in a minute, but for now, I think this looks pretty good. Now, I didn't set up any average score or highest score functionality. I'm just going to leave it here so that you guys can expand on this and see how you do with that. For now, I think this is pretty good as a starting point for us. Why don't we set this up too so that we could have these dates in a little bit more of a user-friendly sort of a way. If we head over back to the terminal and we go to the stat controller or stat model, I'll do it up here. We'll say protected function casts. This will be an array. And for us, we can just return the created at, well, let me put these in parentheses or single quotes. We'll use Carbon's datetime function for the date, the month, and the year. Should be good. I am going to use this little doc block so that we know what it is. It's not confusing. So we'll save that. Return. I forgot to add it here. It's supposed to return an array. And I put it several times and still wasn't paying attention. There we go. 24th of May, 2025. And that looks pretty good. Why don't we set it up so that we also have another link so that we can go back to the quiz and play again if that's what we want to do. So we need another link in here, which is easy. We can go back to the sidebar and do that. So here, let's go back to that component, app sidebar, and then we can create another one. We'll do it down here. Paste that. And this one I'm just going to call Take a Quiz. This will go back to just the root of the project. And then there is another icon that we can use called dices. See if I can import that. Did it bring in the right one? In here, there it is. We can go ahead, click that, and now we're back on the Take a Quiz page. Now we've set it up so that we can see our scores and everything. We're logged in as a user because our dashboard is here, and now we can go back and forth. Let's set it up so that we can click something and have these scores actually go to the database. So the first thing that we'll need to do is create a route so that we can have a post request to the backend. We'll come down to our web routes, and I'm going to copy and paste this one. This will be a post, and then instead of index, it'll be store. And then the route name will be stats.store. Save that. Go to our stat controller. And then we can do that right in here. So what are we doing here? Well, we're taking the auth user and we are using that stats relationship to create a new stat. So what do we need in here? Well, we need the score. And that'll just be the request score. We haven't set this up yet, so it's fine. But we're going to do that request score times 10. Now we also need the start time, but we haven't set up any time functionality on our stuff yet. So right now I'm just going to say now. I'll actually copy this one. This will be end time. We'll also just use now. It'll just make life a lot easier for us. So I'll go ahead and save that. And now this is something that we can use on the front end to create the new stat. Come down here, go to our pages and start setting that up. Now again, there are a couple of ways to do this. We head back over to our welcome view where we have everything listed out here. You can see that we have the current question. We have all of this really good information that we can use to leverage some sort of functionality. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to create a form, and this form is going to hold the values of the score, the timer, and all that stuff so that we can send it to the backend. So let's come up here and let's create a use form here. We'll do const form equals use form. And let's make sure to import this. See if that imported up top. Use form from inertia view. Okay, great. So the first thing that we have is the ID, and that'll just be an empty string. And then we have a score, because that's what it's expecting in the database. For now, I just want to set this to 0. Then we have a start time. And I'm going to leave that as an empty string. And same thing for the end time. So that's what we have to start out with. Because we have this set up so that users don't really need to click something to submit a score, we have it set so that they can either go back to their stats page, if they're authenticated, go to their stats page, view their stats, or they can replay the game. So we need something a little bit more automated in order for those stats to be submitted. So I'm going to come down to where our functions are, and I'm going to come all the way down here, and we'll do it after this one. I'm going to call it submit or function. And all this will do is it will submit that form post to that new route. That's all that this function will do. Right now, that form is submitting, but if you look at our form here that we just used, the only thing we have is a score coming in of 0. So what I want to do is I want to create another function. And this function is going to be called stop. And the reason I'm calling it stop is because when we get into the timer, this function is going to be called to stop the timer that we are going to need to get some information from in order to move to our database. So it's okay to put it in here. So on this stop event, what's going to happen is that we are going to grab that score for the form. And since we're going to have a correct score value, that correct score value is going to be what gets submitted to the form, to the backend from this function here. So we're going to call this one form.score. That way this form will have the score already in it and it'll have the correct value. Now, in order for all of this to go through, we're going to need a way to tell our whole project that at this particular time is when we want to submit this. We want to run the stop and we want to submit the form. Vue has this really cool little function here called watch. And what watch will allow you to do is it will watch some variables for you so that when they change, then something will happen. So for us, I'm going to say, I want to watch the current question index because that's something that's changing as we click things on our quiz. So I want to say, with that, we are going to be looking for a new index. The new index is whatever this is changing to. So it's the current question index, and then we're creating a new index or a variable to watch that index. So we're going to say if, it'll just be one if new index equals 10, then we want to do either of two things. If else, if there is no user value, then we just want to call stop. If we don't have a authenticated user taking this, then just call stop. And it's going to just, I'm pointing to it with my hand and you can't see it. It's just going to be the stop function here. So that's all that's going to happen. Else, we want to submit. If there's no user value, then we want to submit. But where are we getting the user from? Well, if we come to the browser and we open up the inspection tools, because we're using inertia, we are getting the authenticated user on the front end. So if we go to this inertia here, you see that we have the initial page props, and then we have the auth user key in here. And so since that's available to us, this is something that we can use to leverage. So instead of having that whole thing in this one little variable up here, I'm going to create another computed property. And this is what I'm going to call user. And then all I'm going to do here is return the page props auth user. And now we have the user variable here. Now, in order for us to do that, we need to use page from inertia. So here I am going to say const page equals use page. And as you can see, that was imported up here from inertia view 3. So now we should have access to all of that and we should be able to go on. So now if I refresh this and we go to our welcome view, we have the user object, and that user object has that information in here. So let's try to take the quiz and see if we can get this new variable in here. But before we do that, let's go to dashboard and we'll go to our quiz stats. And as you can see here, we only have 10 in here. If this was successful, then we should have 11. Let's go ahead, give this a try and see how we do. Because I'm stuck in a coughing fit, I'm just going to click and I'm not going to say anything. We should have 70. Let's check the dashboard. Go to our quiz stats and see. We have a new one, but our score was not added to this. So let's go find out why. Well, if we take a look, we have the page for the user. We have the user coming in here, which is all fine. If we go down to the watch, we're saying if no user value, stop. But if there is a user, then we will submit. fine, but the stop function is what calls the correct score value, right? So we do need to add that to our submit function here. So we'll just say stop. Let's try that and see how it goes. I'm going to refresh that. We'll go back to take a quiz. I'm not even looking at these right now. I just want to answer them. Dashboard, quiz stats, come down. And as you can see, now we have a score. Now we've managed to put our scores into the backend. So let's go ahead and log out and see if we break anything. In fact, I'll put the console log out here because I see a bunch of things. Stats view, line 52, index. Let's change that. Make sure we get no errors. Okay, good. We're now not logged in. So let's go and try to answer a bunch of questions. Again, random answers, 30%. And that shouldn't matter, but let's check the database and make sure we don't have an extra one. So we should have, I think I'm up to 102. Let's go ahead and refresh these. Sort it by ID. Well, this was 103. That was the one that I just did, the 30. So let's do it again and make sure that that's where we stop at. We are currently logged out, and the last one was 103 for 30. So I'm just going to go ahead and answer a bunch of random answers. We're still at 30%. And if we go and refresh the database, or click it a couple of times, it does change the order of it, but we put it back in the original from latest to oldest, then again, we're still at a score of 30 and nothing has been added to the database without us being logged in. Let's go ahead and register a user. Go ahead, take a quiz, and let's see. %, refresh. Again, it's gone back to the original order of operations here. I'll go ahead and change this. Now we have 104. This is user 11, and user 11 has a score of 30. We have managed to sort that out. If you're enjoying the content, please go ahead and click that like button, as it really does help out the channel. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's a playlist to follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.